Switching back to the dashboard now, we were looking at few options right here. Delete your access keys. Till this point, we know that we can create user accounts and give them role-based access controls or granting them permissions just as much as they need. This is also called as privilege of least access or privilege of least control. Moving forward from that to the next topic, which is these five options that we have in the dashboard to improvise the security posture of IAM. The first option is deleting your root access keys. We now know what access keys are, but just to reiterate, access keys are used to programmatically access the resources in AWS. So if you want to create a S3 bucket or let's say EC2 instance or a virtual machine in AWS with the help of a code or using PowerShell, then you will need access keys and the secret ID. One of the best practice here is to remove or delete the access keys for the root. Now, who is a root account? The root account is us, myself. So when you create your account for the first time in AWS, your account becomes the root account. The root account has full unlimited permissions on AWS. With the help of root account, anything can be done. You can go ahead and provision n number of resources in all services. Although that is good, but it also becomes dangerous. So if some unethical person has hands on your access keys and the secret keys, well, they will be able to do anything on your subscription, right? And who's going to pay for it? Unfortunately, it's you who will be paying for that. So for that purpose, it's important that you go ahead and delete your root access keys. The way you do that is by clicking on the Manage Security Credentials options, navigating to the Access Key section, and then make sure that any access key that's here is removed or deleted. Okay, so that's one. Now going back to the dashboard, looking at the second option, which is multi-factor authentication. You need to make sure that you got MFA on your root account. Now, what is MFA? The acronym itself defines it. So multi-factor authentication is multiple factors of authentication used for accessing the resources. At times it's also called as 2FA. I'll take a step back and explain the authentication method that Rob used when logging into AWS portal, right? So Rob used the user ID and password. So that's one factor. There was no second factor. The second factor is probably if you use a OTP on your phone as well. Or maybe you get a OTP, a one-time password on your email, okay? So that is a second factor. So the flow would go something like this. Rob types in his username and then the password. Hit sign in. And then a message is triggered on your phone or the authenticator app or your email where you get a one-time password. You take that one-time password and paste it in the portal. So you are getting authenticated to prove that it's really you who's trying to access the resources and nobody else. So that way, if there is any malicious actor who's trying to pose as you because he stole your credentials, will not be able to log in because they will not be able to satisfy the second factor or the one-time password. Okay, so that is multi-factor authentication. You see where this is going, right? You are securing your account. You are creating multiple layers of security around the authentication module itself. So that's what multi-factor authentication is. Proving something who you really are with the help of something you know, which is the password, and second one, which is something you have, which is the one-time password, your mobile phone, the authenticator app, email, or anything it could be. So these are the two factors. Although there is a third factor, which is someone you yourself are, and that falls into the category of biometrics. So apart from typing in your user ID and password, you also put your fingerprint or maybe retina scan or facial recognition. Now these are part of something that you are. But at this point, AWS supports just two factors. One is a password, and the second one is using an external MFA device or a UTF security key or a key fob, which are produced by organizations like YubiKey, or you can use a Gemalto token as well. So if you got an authenticator app installed on your phone, it could be any authenticator, could be Google Authenticator, Facebook Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator. You can go ahead and integrate that with that device, with that authenticator app, and let those two factors kick in to your authentication. Okay, so that's about the multi-factor authentication. We spoke about access keys and secret keys earlier. So I'll go back to the dashboard and look at the third option, which is creating an individual IAM account. So it is not recommended that you use your root account to log into the AWS subscription. When organizations create their first login with AWS, they will not use it to log into AWS to do their regular activities. Instead, they will either create accounts here, like the way we created Rob's account, or integrate that with on-premise Active Directory. Okay, so they do that as well. Always use groups to grant permissions. What we did in the first lesson was we created an account for Rob and granted him permissions directly. Now, this was just done to explain things to you in a better way, but organizations will go ahead and assign permissions using groups, right? So this is how it goes. You will go ahead and create a group right here in this section and assign policies to the group and then add users to the group so that users will get the same set of permissions, same set of policies that are assigned to the group. Okay, now this fourth section is all about using groups to assign permissions. So if I go back to the group section here, looks like I have a group called as cloud-storage admins, right? That's there. Now, are there any permissions assigned to it? Yes. And these permissions are S3 full access, Elastic File System read access, and Elastic File System full access. Okay. So any user who's a member of this group will get those set of permissions. That's what it means. And this is the best practice that security professionals and cloud professionals recommend. All right. And the last option is applying an IAM password policy. Now, what is an IAM password policy? A password policy defines how complex a user's password can be so that they do not type maybe simple password like their cat's name or any pet's name as their passwords, right? So we define how complex the password should be and how long should we remember the passwords. Let's take a look at that quickly. So I'm going to click on manage password policy, and then what you will see is a box here which says set password policy. All right, this is where you can enforce the minimum password length. Do you want upper cases in the passwords, lower cases? Do you want to enforce at least one numeric? Do you want that to be alphanumeric? And all those options that you see here, there's no point reading this, but a permutation combination of these makes your password complex, and I will not say impossible, but rather say difficult for an attacker to crack your password. Okay, so I'll click on cancel. So to improvise your security posture, Amazon recommends these 5 options, and all of them must be ticked in green. Okay. All right, folks, that's all for now in this session. Let's go ahead and connect again in the next lesson. Thank you.